Welcome to the ATA Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Baird, and you're listening to Inside Specialization, our series on the what, why, and how of specializing in a specific field of translation or interpreting. In each episode, members of ATA's Professional Development Committee will interview translation and interpreting specialists. They'll ask about what the work entails, what skills are needed, the pros and cons, and so much more. The goal is to showcase the variety of career paths in translation and interpreting and help working professionals and students understand what's out there, how they can get started, and what they need to succeed. Specialization is arguably the best way to strengthen your translation and interpreting business and stand out from the crowd. We're hoping to bring you one episode a month, and we hope you'll join us on this informative journey. This podcast is brought to you by the American Translators Association. If you'd like to know more about ATA, we'll have some information at the end of the show. All right, now over to the PD Committee and this edition of Inside Specialization.
Hi, and welcome to Inside Specialization, a feature of the ATA podcast on specialization and diversification. My name is Maria Baker, and I work with the ATA's Professional Development Committee. I'm very pleased today to bring you another instance of this special collaboration between the ATA podcast and ATA's Professional Development Program. Now, personally, among other things, I am an avid sports watcher. And today we get to talk about the intersection of two passions, which are sports and interpreting. I have the pleasure of speaking today with Anabela Tidona, who is a Spanish interpreter based in Santa Monica, California. She holds a master's degree in medical translation and is court certified at the state and federal levels. As a court interpreter, she has worked in hundreds of trials, depositions, and proceedings, both locally and internationally. As a conference interpreter, she interprets for athletes, politicians, and community leaders. As a trainer, she co-created a series of courses to prepare for the Federal Court Interpreting Certification Examination. And as a speaker, she recently presented at the International Federation of Translators Conference on how to cultivate the right attitude when interpreting on Zoom. How relevant is this? She has been a senior interpreter for a major network for both the 2018 and 2022 FIFA World Cups. So welcome, Anabela, to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Excellent. So tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started interpreting in sports or sporting settings.
Well, actually, my very first paid interpreting assignment was in sports. I was 18 years old. I think it was my senior year of high school. And my best friend in high school, her dad was a soccer scout, and he worked with other scouts and with the lower divisions of local teams here in Buenos Aires. And I am in Buenos Aires right now, and that's why I'm saying here in Buenos Aires instead of here in California. And he helped people from mainly Europe to find young talent and bring them over to the European leagues. So I remember I got a call from my friend's dad, and he's like, next week we have this Austrian scout, and he's looking to bring over some talent to Austria and Germany. He speaks English and German, and I speak only Spanish. So can you help out? Can you come with us to the club? We're gonna watch one of the training sessions of the, I think they were like kids, younger than me. They were like 16, 17. And we went over, we saw the training, and this scout picked out some guys, and then they were, talking about potentially how much the transfer would cost, and how much these kids would be making over there, and more like a business negotiation. But yeah, that was my very first paid interpreting assignment, and it was in sports.
And you were 18.
I was 18. I was very good. My English was very good, but I hadn't taken any interpreting lessons at that time yet.
How interesting. I'm glad
Yes,
I'm glad they found you.
I
So,
know. It was, yeah, it was really, really lucky.
so do you think that interpreters that work in sports need to have that background to succeed? I mean, you didn't when you were 18, or are you secretly an athlete and I don't know?
I was never very good at sports, and I blame my PE teacher in elementary. But I've come to love sports in the past, like 6 years. I really got into sports. Yeah.
Okay, so you don't necessarily need this background to succeed in sports interpreting. You can learn it and get better at it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it always helps, uh, if you practice a sport yourself. It helps if you follow a certain sport. But as you know, you are an interpreter too. Sometimes you're called to interpret in certain areas of expertise that maybe you're not super acquainted with, but you know that if you have, all the information and some time to prepare, you can do a very good job.
That's true. This is true. Yeah. Thank you. So, as a senior interpreter in the last two FIFA World Cups, can you tell us a little bit of what this experience was like for you?
Well, it's interesting that I was able to interpret at the last two World Cups because they were, 4 years apart, and they were, even though I was working for the same network, they were completely different experiences. Because when you think about 2018, we're talking pre-pandemic, pre-COVID, it was, a different world. And we got to go to the network, and it was super exciting, to go to the network. I live in LA, in Santa Monica, so it was like a short drive to the studio. And then, we got passes. So we felt like we were working there for a whole month. It was really exciting just to be there. The facility is just so cool. They created special booths just for the interpreters. They had like any given time, you could have like 6 different interpreters interpret at the same time. We each had our own individual booths. They look more like voiceover booths for one person with monitors. The audio was spectacular. The conditions were amazing. And then when we had to watch, so we were interpreting, I want to clarify that I was interpreting the pre-game and the post-game reactions, the interviews of the players. We were not interpreting during the game itself. And when it was time for the game to be played, we would go to the green room and watch the game with these other like TV presenters that work at that network, and we would be watching the game with them, and it was just like so much fun. And it was like a very positive experience. And then fast forward to 2022, post COVID, we were actually able to do it on Zoom remotely from our offices or whatever home base. I have a home office, I have a home studio. So it was, on the one hand, it was super convenient because the World Cup is 2018. You're talking Russia, completely different time zone. So we were driving to the studio in the middle of the night. And then this time, again, very different time zone, but this time was interpreting from the comfort of our home, which when it's a very unusual time, it's really convenient. But on the other hand, you don't have the excitement of being at the studio with all the comforts and the amenities and the technical support that the studio
Yeah.
had to offer. So there were two very different experiences. I love them both, especially because in 2022 my country won. So yeah.
I was gonna say, it would have been difficult for me to watch the games with like the TV presenters because I would get very emotional if it's my game that I
Of
have
course.
skin on. But anyway, the conditions then were everything that we hope for as interpreters. They provided everything you needed.
So for the first one, yes, they were, above and beyond. And then for my second experience in 2022, I think I was very prepared. They obviously, we had the burden of, providing our own equipment, but we're talking, late 2022. By this time, I had been doing remote interpreting for over 2 years. So I was, fully prepared. I have a home studio with, a great mic, great headsets, a strong wired internet connection. So I cannot speak for any other interpreters. I felt prepared, and everything worked well. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, they picked the right person.
Thank
So,
you.
what did you think that was the thing that you liked the most about the fact that you were interpreting for this massive sporting events?
I think that and I just think like it's the single most popular sports event in the world. The World Cup, it's like the most popular sport in the world.
Indeed.
It's so massive. It's a big responsibility. And then at the end, we got a nod from a sports journalist that was critiquing the coverage of this particular network. And he said that it was really nice that there was interpretation into English provided by the network, which, for Americans, for them to also feel maybe a little bit more invited. I feel that maybe in the US, the sport is not as popular as everywhere else in the world. And we're going to be hosting the next one along with Mexico and Canada. And so I felt that it was such a good deed, in a way that we could promote the sport for the American audience, and hopefully they can really, feel like they have like skin in the game, and they're like as excited as everyone else everywhere else in the world. And it's huge. I mean, it's the largest sporting event, and everybody knows about it, and everybody follows it, and it's a big responsibility, but it's also like a great source of joy.
Right. Yeah, very, very important. And, the reasons you quote are basically the reasons why we interpret, to bring people closer to each other.
Absolutely.
Have you interpreted for any other soccer international events so far?
I have interpreted in press conferences locally in LA. And leading up to the 2018 World Cup, we had a really good system where the network was trying to create content for their website. So we were interviewing players while they were still at their respective clubs, mostly in Europe, and we were doing really beautiful, heartfelt interviews. I was interpreting consecutive for those. We're talking like early 2018. We were doing them on Zoom, but consecutive. I didn't know what Zoom was at the time, and that was like a great like onboarding, doing those long interviews with players leading up to the 2018 World Cup.
Very nice. Now, you're already familiar with the field, but how do you keep up to date in this area and keeping your skills strong for these events? Do you like watch games, or how do you prepare, or how do you keep up?
Yeah, so there's there's a branch of journalism that it's like sports journalism, and it's really popular here in Argentina. So leading up to an event, I like to follow the local journalists, like either on other networks or maybe podcasts. I also read the newspapers and see, how the players are doing, what injuries do they have. I think it was really interesting. Right now, I came to Argentina 10 days ago to attend one of the conferences of the Colegio de Traductores de la Provincia de Buenos Aires. And I got here 10 days ago, and I'm watching just regular TV. And what's on the news is like the players' injuries. And this is news. It's not, our, crazy inflation rate. Is like the injuries, right? And so I think like when you spend time like in a place like Argentina, yes, it's good to, go out and look for that information in the media, in the newspaper, maybe read a book if you're interested in something in particular, but you can also live and breathe the soccer, because it's like it's part of it's within their fabric, and just watching the TV, you'll hear about Messi's injuries.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, what other skills do you think sports interpreters need for events like this? What characteristics does an interpreter need?
Well, you have to be a good public speaker. You have to definitely be spontaneous, animated, and just try to be truthful to the emotion. Right after a match, emotions run high. And I think that this is something that we can provide as real human interpreters. We can convey those emotions with our intonation, and really like you said, uh help people cross the language bridge.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So, do you ever interpret in other sports?
Yes, I have interpreted for a few other sports. Also, I was super lucky back in 2015 to be one of the two Spanish interpreters at the Special Olympics that took place in LA. And that was really, really beautiful as well.
Wow, I'm really impressed.
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
what if you could work in another sport that you haven't worked with, which sport would you pick?
I think that would be Olympic weightlifting.
Olympic weightlifting. Look at that. Are you a weightlifter yourself?
A very bad one, but yes, I actually love it. It's funny because, as I told you, I was like, growing up, I was not a big sports fan. I was not the person that would like tune in to watch any sports. Maybe some like skating, it's really pretty. Maybe some gymnastics during the Olympics, but that was about it. And then I started lifting about 5 years ago, and now I'm tuning to every, championship, and yeah,
Wow.
any chance I get, I'll watch it.
Now you're even more impressive in my eyes. You lift heavy things. This is amazing. So you would pick Olympic weightlifting as a new field maybe in the horizon. Um, do you have if an interpreter wants to get started in the world of sports, what kind of advice would you give a novice interpreter for this field?
I wouldn't be shy about getting in touch with colleagues that that they work in maybe in an event that you'd like to work in. Maybe you can observe that other more senior interpreter, for them to follow the sport, to create maybe like a glossary, to visualize yourself doing what you love, and I'm sure the opportunity will present itself for you to try it out.
Wonderful. I have one final question. In your opinion, what is the outlook for interpreting in sports? Is this a field that is growing? What does the future hold for interpreting in sports?
Yeah, I think that with this more interconnected world that we live in, there will be more and more opportunities, and we just need to keep up with the times and make technology our friend and know how to use it to make us more complete. But I am an optimistic at heart.
Awesome. So, like in every other aspect of our profession, technology here plays a part.
Yes, because I don't think I would have been able to do this last World Cup if it hadn't been for the tools that we have, and I'm grateful for that.
All right, so Anabela Tidona, interpreter for the FIFA World Cups and weightlifter extraordinaire, thank you so much for your time, for this candid interview, and for opening this window into your work for us.
Thank you for your lovely interview, and I'll see you around.
All right, thank you everybody for listening, and we will see you next time.
You've been listening to Inside Specialization, our series on the what, why, and how of specializing in a specific field of translation or interpreting. Big thanks to everyone involved in the production of this episode. ATA's PD committee developed and coordinated the interview. Mixing and editing was done by Derek Platts. ATA headquarters provided editorial and technical support. Now, if you learned anything new in today's podcast, I bet there's somebody out there who would like to know it too. Don't be stingy. Tell them about us. I've gotten to know so many great podcasts that way. I promise they'll thank you for it. And if you're not an ATA member, listen up. I've been a member for over 20 years. I can honestly say that ATA launched my freelance career, and I've never looked back. Nowadays, the demand for translators and interpreters is at an all-time high, but finding quality work isn't easy. ATA membership can make a difference. And ATA isn't just for translators or interpreters. Individuals, companies, and organizations can become members. We have teachers, professors, hospital administrators, language company owners, technology developers, as well as language companies, universities, hospitals, and government agencies. Go to ATA's website, atanet.org, for details. Or check out past episodes of this podcast where we talk about the benefits of membership and what's currently happening in the association. Thanks again for listening, everyone. Talk to you again soon.